Hello, writers. Have you ever bought a writing craft book someone says you just have to read?
Is it still sitting on your shelf? Have you even cracked the spine?
That's totally me.
Don't ask Renee how many craft books she owns.
Why do we keep buying these books we never read?
We all want to improve as writers, but that's hard to do alone.
That's why we started the Words to Write By podcast, to tackle these books together, chapter by chapter, and learn from their advice.
Or not. Sometimes they're wrong.
Hi, I'm Renee Nelson, former college writing instructor turned full-time writer and podcaster. After many years, I finally have a complete draft of my memoir.
And I'm Kim Smuga-Otto, author of the humorous fantasy series Boy Bands and Dragons. The first book, Our Comeback Tour Slaying Monsters, will be released this year by Riverfolk Publishing.
And now, on with the podcast.
Welcome to Words to Write By. This is our workshop episode.
Hi, everybody.
And today we are not interviewing a fiction author. We are interviewing Martha Mendoza. She is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist with the Associated Press. And she was also one of my teachers when I was doing the science communications program at UCSC. Welcome.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
And the reason we're calling you in is because it is college application season. And one of the things that college applications require, and I know this personally from last year, having a senior, is you need to write a college application essay. Martha has been helping out with the Santa Cruz County Education Department for the last few years, setting up a mentorship program for high school seniors to work with established writers to write these essays.
Right. It's actually our 9th year, which is unbelievable to me.
Wow.
But over that period, we've helped thousands of students with their essays. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I've done it a few times and it's been really rewarding. Some of the kids are just like hands down amazing. And some other kids, like, it's really good that they've got somebody to help them along.
Exactly. Well, thanks for volunteering to do that. And I think everybody needs some help with their writing. We all do.
Absolutely, which is why we have our podcast.
Yep.
Let's just start with, why is it so hard for high school students to write these essays?
For one thing, the prompts are very vague. So for a high school student to sit down and say, like, what are my great skills? What are my great strengths? Or it's just very broad. And they also have a hard time bragging about themselves. I think it's actually just they struggle with the idea of the essay much more than the actual writing of the essay. I know a lot of kids let this loom all summer long. Then, the deadline's coming. We don't have as small of high school classes as we used to. And so students are not getting as intensive writing feedback throughout their high school career. And so when it comes time to write the essay that's going to define your future, you also have that pressure on you, right? Like, oh man, I got to write this essay. It could make or break me. Since COVID, a lot of universities are no longer even using SAT scores or any other test scores. So it's your grades and it's your essay. So there's just a lot riding on it. I think it's hard for a high school student, a high school senior, to accomplish any big, heavy task like that, even though many high school seniors are beautiful writers.
One of the difficulties that high school seniors have is they have no idea what the colleges are looking for. So what do the colleges care about to see in these essays?
It depends on a little bit if you're talking about the University of California, which has 4 or 5 essays, and they really just want to see that this is a multifaceted student, plays guitar, volunteers at the church, whatever those like very different things are. The private universities want a 600-word single essays, and that essay, they are looking for a dynamic, interesting, compassionate person, somebody who is going to make the most of their education at their institution. Word-wise, that needs to be more of a grabber, a better written essay if it's for the private universities, for what's called the Common App. Many have like a supplemental essay, like why Princeton or why whatever. And for those, I think they're just wanting you to know a tiny bit about their school. I like small private schools, and Southern California really appeals to me. The Claremont College history and Pomona's focus on equity resonate for me. Those are short supplemental essays. But for the big Common App essay, they want to know that you're an interesting person. And they're much more interested in somebody who can write about how they needed to work at McDonald's all summer to help support their immigrant family than the essay about the kid who went to the Philippines to help the other people. So it doesn't have to be that you've accomplished something. A lot of times kids are like, I need to tell them about how I scored that winning goal. And I'm like, that doesn't tell us much about you. So they really want to know about the person.
I know one thing that the mentoring program is the first thing we talk about with the students is try to figure out what things they might want to write about themselves. And like, there's a lot of actually interviewing. And then when I'm talking to the students, I'm trying to find something that they have a passion about or something that they really feel like they could write about as opposed to something they're trying to portray themselves as. Are there any advice that you have for students when they're picking out what subject or what to write about themselves?
Yeah, we really brainstorm with them. And the brainstorming for me begins not asking, what are you going to write about, but what's your life like? What are you into, as you said, Kim? Like, what are you passionate about? And, as long as it's not entirely surfing, as long as there's something more about the ocean being a beautiful and powerful place, like you can kind of tease it out from there. Kids are very deep. There's nothing shallow about them, except for sometimes their initial interactions with, somebody they see as in the grown-up world. They tend to really enjoy the conversation and the attention from somebody who's not their parent, not their teacher, and who's going to help them accomplish what has felt like a looming challenge.
Mm-hmm. I know when I'm talking to parents of kids in high school and they bring up some odd thing that they do, I'm like, that would make a perfect college essay. Like a friend of mine, her son has recently got into spearfishing.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool.
I said, yeah, that is such a good one. That'd make a great essay.
Yeah. Although I will say, I got into this because my oldest kid, who's now 31, I think, he was writing his college essay, and I realized I needed to step away from that. And so I asked my college journalism mentor if he would help my son with his essay, which he did. And then he helped my next kid with his essay. And then I began realizing, okay, we all need to be mentoring other kids. And that's my red flag, is that parents often think they know what their kid's essay should be about. And it's really wild because a lot of times the kids are like, that was ninth grade. That was a lifetime ago. I'm not about that at all now. I'm about, racial justice or Gaza or something. And it's like their lives, only are 16, 17, 18 years. And the first 10 were being really little kids. The parents come a lot of the time with, here's what my kid's essay should be. And the kids are just like, no. I love for it to be in their own voice.
Right. Tensions definitely get raised when you're working with your kid to write something like this. So it was really nice to have a program, a free program like the one you've been working with, to send him off to. So it wasn't me and him, it was him and someone else. And then afterwards, when he got a better feel for it, he had to do additional essays. Then he was more comfortable asking us to look things over. But that first essay was the worst.
Mm-hmm. I helped my sister's 3 kids with their college essays, and I made everybody in the family swear that she wouldn't read them until they had already gotten into college, because I was like, we could have some problems arise. I really know how to coach someone through a really good essay. Trust me on this, but let's not intervene. And during COVID, I had a family friend where, they were all locked down with a high school senior trying to apply to college, and the parents are professors.
Oh, that's no.
Yeah, they all decided that I could just have carte blanche with the kid. So together we decided where they would apply. We worked on the essays, we worked on the application, and the parents just wrote it out. And then we're like, do you know where she just got into school? And I'm like, yeah, I did know. Yeah, I think it's a great step toward independence to get the parents out of the college application process as much as possible. It's hard.
I bet that was really responsible of the professors. They knew.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's ended up being a very good fit for her.
Excellent. besides not talking about your trip to the Philippines where you helped out a bunch of people and realized that in fact you were the person being helped out, what other do's and don'ts do you have for college essay writing?
Okay. And I will say, one time a student had that trip to Guatemala, but she ended up writing a great essay about trying to kill a chicken, with her Guatemalan family. So it was, you wring its neck or chop it, and kind of what that was bringing up for herself. And so it's not that you can't write about that if you've had that experience. It's just, don't turn it on. I was going to help people, and then I ended up realizing they could help me. It's just too cliche. It gets sticky with writing about mental health and eating disorders and those struggles, which a lot of our high school students are now facing. And even though, I just think the emotional intelligence of teenagers today is really high because they are much more able to talk about these issues and overcome these issues. But I don't think that that is what a college admissions officer is going to be like, bang, that's my person. Again, there's room there. I know somebody who did one about her role in her family as somebody else in the family was struggling with anorexia, and wove it in beautifully. But in general, not that. And for the do's, do really tell about yourself. So because we're in Santa Cruz County and we work with a lot of kids who are the children of immigrants or immigrants themselves, a lot of the time we want to help them realize that their lived experience actually is going to be quite an eye-opener for somebody who's not from this region. So the fact that you get up at 6 a.m. in the summer to work on the strawberry fields, or that you are actually the person translating for your parents in the doctor's office, all of those things are very interesting and say a lot about these kids. So we do sometimes try to steer them away from, again, the winning goal that they shot as the captain of the soccer team when they have a far richer lived experience.
If you're a parent and you realize that you can't necessarily coach your kid through this process, how do you suggest finding someone to help them out?
That's a really nice question. I mean, in Santa Cruz County, we have this program, but it's unusual, and it's, and it's particularly cool because our writers who are the mentors for this program, like, we have somebody who writes for New Yorker magazine who volunteers. These kids are getting a real writing lesson of their life. For parents, I have heard of parents who have spent upwards of $20,000 getting a private college. Yeah, I see your jaw dropping. It's just, I'm like, you did? Not everybody knows a writer, but if you do, or if you know someone who might know a writer, you can ask them. I mean, I've had plenty of people who I've coached through their college essays, and that's a 10 hours over several days experience, from brainstorming to outlining to writing to fine tuning. But lots and lots more people have just been like, hey, Martha, could you read my essay?
Mm-hmm.
And, college admissions officers also can help give them a look in some universities. So their job is to help people figure out how to get into the school. And so if they look at someone's essay, they're going to make a note that they shouldn't be that person's reviewer of their application.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them are willing to do that. And then a lot of universities have a writing center, and it takes a phone call and an explanation. And it's the best if you can get the child themselves to make the approach, but they sometimes will read them over as well. And then finally, high school English teachers who are extremely overworked and have way too many students to actually be able to help with writing, but they might be able to help. I know that there's retired English teachers, many of whom, thank goodness, volunteer with our program, who will do this. And then AI is going to play a huge role in these going forward.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess the other side of that is a lot of our listeners are writers. And, if they suddenly listen to this podcast and realize that, oh, my friend's senior, maybe I could help out. For the Santa Cruz program, you actually do a great presentation. I'm not going to ask you to rehash that, but after you had that kind of initial interview to find out what the kid is passionate about or whatever, how do you structure the mentorship?
Yeah, since we had to move online, it's one of the few things that I think COVID maybe made better, which is these mentoring sessions online, because we can have East Coast mentors and we can have people who just want to be in the evening or weekends or whatever. We used to, Renee, have one day a year where we would all crowd into the County Office of Education with some pizza, and we would just be like, we're going to get you through as much of your essay as you can today, which also was kind of nice for the kids. They walk in just nervous and unhappy, and they walk out just so pleased. But it was intense. So the way we break it down now for the online mentoring is day one is just brainstorming, and the writing mentor takes notes while the student talks, only writing down the student's own words, but just jotting it down. And kind of jumping from one idea to the next. So sometimes, a student will come in really ready to talk about tennis team, and then, question about mom and dad, and realizing that they don't live anywhere near you and you're finishing up high school with your grandparents so they can own a Chinese restaurant in another part of the state. We as the mentors need to kind of guide them on that's probably going to be really the moving part of your essay. And then by the end of that session, we try to take their notes and with them discuss a potential outline. And then they come back with some words hanging on that outline, like just fatten up the outline. So if there's a sentence on an outline that's like moving to Santa Cruz, then like just write a little bit about when you moved to Santa Cruz. And so they come back for meeting number 2 with a very rough draft. And if you can be doing this in a shared doc, you can watch them progress sometimes. But they come back with a very rough draft. Hopefully you can take a little time with it at the beginning. And, we always tell them, wow, here's the part, the very specific thing that's really good that you did here. And then maybe move this stuff around. And this part probably isn't going to work. Oh, I really love that other thing you did there. That was amazing. I love the way you're writing about this. And then we make suggestions. And usually from that rough draft to the second draft, it's add some quotes, add some color, add some description. You say that you started eating at the restaurant. What were the meals like? Or, like we highlight, and this is kind of fun for them. By this time, they're starting to feel like, okay, I can do that. I can describe what the sand felt like on my feet in the morning. So we just ask those questions. And then the third meeting, they come back with a draft. It's got some quotes. It's got some color. You want to make sure it has like a theme or a point, a beginning and an end. And so you give them another edit on that to make sure it has those things. And then the final meeting is usually half an hour or so. I just have the students read it out loud, and they'll correct themselves as they go, unless English is their second language, in which case you can work with them a bit. But sometimes that just means letting them know that they should say in their essay, they need to describe when they learned English, and they still are working on some of these grammatical lessons,
I know one thing that was always in the back of my mind when I'm mentoring is to remember that I'm not writing this essay, because I know exactly what the phrase should be. I know exactly, how you should do these things. And yet the critical thing is that they learn to write this themselves, and it has to be their own voice and their own experience.
Yeah. And admissions officers know right away, ding, 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 this kid didn't write this essay.
Yep.
It's very obvious.
Yeah, students don't realize how obvious it is. But I'm just kind of curious with my own experience teaching. Have you found that students are resistant to mentorship or these kinds of, tutoring or whatever? Because the students that I've had, it is really, really hard to get them to go get help in the first place. You will take them to the tutoring center. You will not threaten them, but pretty much say, you're not going to pass this class without some more skills. And they just will not go. So I'm just kind of wondering, are these students these are the ones that just go, or have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, especially because sometimes people's parents sign them up for this. And so we definitely struggle with it. And this year we're introducing yet another attempt to combat that, which is on the Google Doc where they sign up, a few sentences of commitment I commit to contacting my tutor and working with them over this course of this many days, like just to check the box or put their initials on there, because it's a lot to have a mentor go through all the training, be ready to go, and then their person doesn't show up. And that has happened, particularly, post COVID. There's just been a little less showing up sometimes on the Zoom. But I was that kid who didn't want to go to the tutoring center. And I was that kid who didn't pass that freshman writing class and needed to take another writing class.
You never told us that.
Oh, gosh, yeah. But it was because of that I grew to love writing, right? Because that's when it starts being fun, when it stops being hard with barriers. And I can say, as a mom, I'm proud that my own kids have, when we go see college for the first time, we walk over to the tutoring center together. I'm like, never turn in an essay without coming here first. Don't do that to your teachers. And so,
like that.
yeah.
What would you say to a student who's resistant? Is there like a thing that you could say from maybe your own experience, as a writer, something that might convince them that this is a good idea?
This is going to be fun. You're going to be surprised. This is actually going to be really fun to get this essay done, and you're going to feel really good about it. And the one thing I tell them is like, I am 100% sure that we can do this, that you and I can get this essay done. And then you're off to applying to college, and it's done for the whole rest of your life, this essay. And so we have a good time, and we try to get our mentors also to have a good time. And when we have done surveys afterward, both the students and the mentors are like, that was very fun. That was gratifying. I think that's important for kids to know. This isn't going to hurt.
It's going to be fun. Right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great podcast. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this was so that I could recommend this podcast to friends that have kids that are doing this, because
good.
Good way to spread it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. I love it. I'm going to have to check out your podcast. I love the idea. We're always thinking about how to write things. Today, I'm been 3 hours trying to think of one driving question for a story I'm doing. I mean, it
never gets easier, does it?
Some parts get easier, but the writing, if it's getting easier, it means you're not getting better, I think.
I like that. I'm going to keep telling myself that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Words to Write By is produced by Renee Nelson and Kim Smiga Adam. Our theme music is Roll Back the Carpet by Cool Cat Music. Have a great day.
Yeah, so buttons.